All right, everyone, welcome back to Shabika's Book 4, Unit 6, Grammar Presentation 1 of 2. What you need to know. What are time words? What is a time clause? What is the simple present? And what is a comma? Today we will study what is a clause, what is a dependent clause, a time clause, also referred to as a time clause, and what is an independent clause, also referred to as the main clause. Time clauses, time words, when, as, before, after, and comma rules. All right, I'll give you 1 minute. Just read over this page, and then we'll talk about it together. All right, let's go over our slide here. What are time words? You have different time words, so you need to understand what each one does. When we use when, we're talking about at what time. Like when it is 4 p.m., I will start the presentation. As, something happens at the same time. As the sun goes down, people come out of their houses. So this we're using as when something happens at the same time. Before, used to indicate that something happens before the time when something else takes place. Before the sun goes down, most people stay home. After, used to indicate that something happens after the time when something else took place. So after the sun goes down, people get up and go outside. All right. So again, we've got as, same time, before, indicates something happens before the time when something else takes place, and after indicates something happens after the time when something else took place. All right, and again, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, read over the slide, and then we'll talk about it together. Okay, let's talk about what is a clause. A clause has a subject and a verb. There are independent and dependent clauses. An independent clause has a subject and a verb, and it can be alone. It is a full sentence. I am happy. A dependent clause also has a subject and a verb, but it cannot be alone. It needs to be with an independent clause. When it rains, this is not a sentence because it's not telling us anything. We're using when, but we're not telling when. We can put the independent clause and the dependent clause together to make a sentence. I am happy when it rains. All right, let's look at the next slide. All right, now it's talking about time clauses. I want to give you 2 minutes to go over this first, and then I will read it with you. All right, let's go over time clauses. A time clause is a dependent clause. It must go with the main clause. Main clause, also called an independent clause, right? So we have the independent or main clause, I am happy, and our dependent or time clause, when it rains. How do we know this is the time clause? When. All right, when is the time word here? So this becomes the time clause. All right, let's look at the next example. She feels proud when she passes a test. She feels proud is an independent or main clause. When she passes a test is a dependent time or time clause. Why, we've got that time word, when. All right, let's look at our last example. He eats carrots when he wants to diet. He eats carrots, independent main clause. When he wants to diet, dependent time clause. And again, there's our time word. Okay, I'll give you 1 minute, look over this slide, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, so time clauses in the present tense. Today we are studying time clauses in the present tense. The verbs in both clauses should be in the same tense, simple present. And we previously learned about simple present in the past unit. All right, I am happy when it rains. I am happy is your independent or main clause. When it rains is your dependent or time clause. And what's our key here? The time word when. Simple present verbs am, rains. All right, so both of our verbs need to be in the same simple present tense. Don't forget this. And again, I'll give you 1 minute to read over this before we talk about it. All right, time words. When, before, after. Time words make a sentence dependent. I am happy is an independent or main clause. When I am happy is a dependent time clause. It needs more. Right? When you say I am happy, that's a complete sentence. Everybody understands what you're saying there, what the meaning of that sentence. But when you say when I am happy, everybody's waiting for something else to be put there to explain, tell us what when you're happy. When, before, after, and as time words. These words all make time clauses. So you know when you see when, before, after, as, it becomes a dependent clause because we're using the time words. All right, let's take a look at our next page here. Okay, you're going to choose the main clause in each sentence. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go through this, and then we'll go over them together. All right, let's go over our sentences here and choose which part is the main clause and which part is the dependent clause. All right, we'll go over them here first, and then I'll show you the answers on the next page. Number 1, before the mall closes, Sam wants to get a juice. Where is our independent clause or our main clause? It'll be right here. Sam wants to get a juice. Why? Before. Our time clause here, our time word here tells us this is going to be the dependent clause. All right, number 2. Salim listens to music before he runs. So our main clause, our independent clause would be Salim listens to music. Before he runs would be our dependent clause. Why? There's our word, before. Bill explains his math problem as Maria listens to him. Right? Bill explains his math problem is our independent, okay, or main clause, and as Maria listens to him as our dependent clause. Why? As. As Bud goes to school, he calls his friend Sarah. Right? He calls his friend Sarah as our independent or main clause. As Bud goes to school is our dependent clause because of as. All right? There's our word. After Miriam picks up her kids from school, she goes to the park. She goes to the park is our independent main clause. After, this becomes our dependent clause. After Miriam picks up her kids from school. When Muhammad drinks his cola, he smiles. He smiles is our independent or main clause. And when Muhammad drinks his cola is our dependent clause. Okay, let's take a look at the next page, and we'll go over it again real quick. All right. And again, I'll just run through them. Before the mall closes, Sam wants to get juice. All right, the red here is our main clause, or referred to as independent clause. Number 2, Salim listens to music before he runs. 3, Bill explains his math problem as Maria listens to him. 4, as Bud goes to school, he calls his friend Sarah. 5, after Miriam picks up her kids, she goes to the park. And last one, number 6, when Muhammad drinks his cola, he smiles. Okay, and again, just check your answers before I move on to the next slide. The main clauses are highlighted in red. All right, so I'll leave it here for a minute so you can correct your answers. Make sure you have good sentences. All right, let's move on to our next slide. Okay, I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. Read through this about the comma rules before we move on, and then I will go over them after you've had a chance to read it and try to understand it. So let me give you about 3 minutes to read through this, okay? The comma rules are important. All right, let's go over the comma rules. You can choose if the main clause comes first or second. So what is this telling us? When you're writing your sentence, you don't always have to have the main clause first, the main or independent clause first. You can put the dependent or time clause first if you want. All right, but the key is where and when do you use the comma? Main clause plus time clause equals don't use the comma. So if you're going with the main clause first, you do not need the comma. So let's look at some examples. I am happy when it rains. I am happy is our main clause. It's coming first, so we are not using a comma. I brush my teeth after I eat. All right, main clause, I brush my teeth. Dependent clause, after I eat, no comma. I go to sleep after I brush my teeth. Okay, I go to sleep is our main clause. It comes first, so we don't put a comma here. After I brush my teeth, dependent clause, it's got our time clause word there. All right, let's look at the rule. When do we use the comma? When the time clause plus the main clause, we use a comma. So if you're putting the time clause first, then we are going to use a comma. All right, time clause, then the main clause. You put a comma at the end of the time clause before the main clause starts. So we're using the same sentence here. We're just changing it around. When it rains, comma, I am happy. Okay, time clause first because we see the when. This indicates our time clause. All right, then we've got to put our comma in here. After I eat, I brush my teeth. Okay, after is our time word, so it's telling us the time clause is first. We put our comma in there, and then we have our main clause. All right, same thing, we're using the same sentence we got here. After I brush my teeth, comma, I go to sleep. All right, after is our time word, so we know that this is the time clause or dependent clause that's coming first. So we have to make sure we have that comma there. All right, sorry, the little thing keeps popping up. All right, now you've got these two sentences, or this sentence, I am happy when it rains. When it rains, I am happy. Which one is correct? This one or this one? Which one is the correct way to do it? Both are the correct way to do it, as long as you remember the comma rules. If the main clause is first, no comma. If the time clause is first, comma. All right? Now, when you see this in a test where they're checking, they might have, okay, which is the correct one? I am happy, comma, when it rains. When it rains, I am happy, or I am happy when it rains. The last one would be correct. I am happy when it rains, because we have the main clause first, so we don't put a comma. All right, so be careful of that when you're checking on test day. All right, let's go to our next slide. Okay, so here you're going to complete each sentence using the words in parentheses. So I want you to take about 5 or 6 minutes here and you make sentences. Here's your answer, okay? Here's the word you're going to use for your answer. It's not complete because take a look at what they did here, all right? When the car is broken, I take the bus. You see, they just put take the bus there. If you just put take the bus, your answer is going to be wrong. So you have to think, all right? All right, so I want to give you about 5 minutes to finish up this page, and then we'll go over the answers together. All right. Hopefully everyone found this pretty easy. All right, let's take look at the next slide here, and we'll go over the answers for these. All right, so we already did number one. The phrase we wanted to use was take the bus. When the car is broken, I take the bus. So what's underlined here? Is this the dependent or independent clause? What's underlined is the independent clause. How do we know what the dependent is? We've got our time word over here. All right, so remember, the dependent clause, also called the time clause because of the time word. All right, I like to play computer games when I get home. Good. All right, when she is sick, she goes to the doctor. All right, a little bit of mistake here. Shouldn't be a capital letter in the middle here. All right, next we're going to use hot. They like to eat ice cream when they are hot. Okay. When my friends meet me at the mall, we shop for clothes. All right. Hopefully everybody was able to do this without any problems. All right. Let's take a look at our next page here. All right. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to complete each sentence using the words in parentheses. So here's your information. Finish your sentence. All right, 5 minutes. Again, 5 minutes, then we'll go over answers. All right, let's take a look at our answers. All right. I eat too much candy when I go to my grandmother's house. While my mother shops at the mall, comma, I eat at the food court. After we finish our homework, comma, we play soccer. Once our favorite TV show is over, comma, we turn off the TV. Before I take a shower, comma, I brush my teeth. All right. I'm going to leave the page here for a minute or two, give you a chance to go over and check your answers and make sure your sentences are correct. All right. Let's move on to our next slide. All right, here we're going to look at the pairs of sentences, and you're going to write two sentences with time clauses for each pair. The given time word, one with the time clause first and one with the time clause second. So you'll make two sentences for each, or you'll make two answers here. You have to come up with two sentences. One, you're going to start with the independent clause or main clause. And then the second sentence you make is going to start with the dependent or time clause. All right. So one of your sentences has to have the time clause first, and then the second sentence has to have the time clause in the second part. All right. So they give an example here. My computer takes a long time to start up. I can use the internet. They want you to use the time word before. Before I can use the internet, comma, I have to have the comma because I have my time clause first. Time word before. All right, before I can use the internet, comma, my computer takes a long time to start up. Don't forget your full stops at the end of the sentences. My computer takes a long time to start up before I can use the internet, full stop. No comma, because the time clause comes second here. And there's our time word. All right, you take 2 minutes to do number 2, and then we will go over this to make sure you guys have the correct answers before we move on to more of these exercises. So take 2 minutes. Okay, let's go over the answer for number 2. Now, everybody needs to pay attention and use our listening skill because there will not be a written answer sheet for this at the end. All right, so you're going to have to listen to me and check your answers. Now, don't write anything down or don't try to copy what I'm saying yet, because I'm going to show you first, or I'm going to show you some examples here. All right. Now, my mother visits me. We go shopping. All right. So now, first, I'm going to start out with the independent clause and then put the time clause second. So listen. My mother visits me when we go shopping. My mother visits me when we go shopping. What's wrong with this sentence? What did I try to do? I tried to use the sentences just like it is here, and then I tried to stick the when right here. And it doesn't make any sense. Listen, my mother visits me when we go shopping? No. Okay? We would need to change it around and start like this. We go shopping when my mother visits me. All right? This is going to be a key. You need to think about what these two sentences are and the meaning and how they go together. Don't just think you can stick the time clause here or the time word here or the time word here and it be okay. We need to think. So we would change it if we're going to put the time clause second. We go shopping when my mother visits me. That would be one sentence. Now a second sentence, we're going to start with the time clause. So when what? My mother visits me. What do we got to do? Comma. When my mother visits me, comma, we go shopping. Now, make sure with this also, we're taking two sentences and combining them into one. So we want to remove capital letters. We want to remove full stops. Now, let me give you our two answers again. Okay, so capital W for when. When my mother visits me, comma, we go shopping. Second sentence, start with a capital W for we. We go shopping when, small m, my mother visits me. We go shopping when my mother visits me. All right, good. Going to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to give you 6 minutes. Give you 2 minutes for each of these. Remember, you're writing two sentences for each one. Okay, one where the time clause comes first, and the second sentence, the time clause comes second. All right. Okay, so you guys will have 6 minutes, and then we'll go over the answers before we move on to the next slide. for it. Okay, let's go over this. Now again, don't copy this first one. Just listen to me because I'm going to give you an incorrect one. Okay? I get home from school after I play with my brother. Huh? That doesn't seem to make any sense. I get home from school after I play with my brother? No. All right? So you would say after, now these will be the correct sentences. After I get home from school, comma, I play a game with my brother. Okay? After I get home from school, comma, I play a game with my brother. Now the second sentence would be, I play a game with my brother after I get home from school. Okay? I play a game with my brother after I get home from school. Okay, let's look at number 4. I ate dinner. I have to cook it. Now, can you say I eat dinner before I have to cook it? How can you eat before you cook? All right. So I have to, let's see. So we can either start with the time clause or we can put the time clause second. So we'll start with the time clause. Before I eat dinner, I have to cook, comma, I have to cook it. Before I eat dinner, comma, I have to cook it. Now, next we'll make the dependent or the independent clause first. I have to cook it before I eat dinner. I have to cook it before I eat dinner. All right. Number 5. I study for the test. I get a good grade. We'll start with the time clause first. When I study for the test, comma, I get a good grade. When I study for the test, comma, I get a good grade. Now we'll start with the independent clause. I get a good grade when I study for the test. I get a good grade when I study for the test. All right, next page. Okay, you have 2 more. Give you 4 minutes to go through this, 2 minutes each one, and then we will check our answers together. All right, let's check our answers here. I eat dinner, I finish exercising. So we'll start with the time clause. Once I finish exercising, comma, I eat dinner. Okay, now we'll start with the independent clause. I eat dinner once I finish exercising. Okay, so both ways. Once I finish exercising, comma, I eat dinner. I eat dinner once I finish exercising. Okay, number 7. We are at the Corniche. We have a picnic. Start with our time clause. While we are at the Corniche, comma, we have a picnic. Again, start with the time clause. While we are at the Corniche, comma, we have a picnic. All right, let's start an independent. We have a picnic while we are at the Corniche. We have a picnic while we are at the Corniche. All right. Let's take a minute to review here. Clauses have a subject and a verb. The verb tense, past, present, future, should be the same in both clauses. An independent clause, also called main clause, can be alone. A time clause is a dependent clause. It cannot be alone. It needs to go with an independent clause. When, before, after, and as are time words. They make time clauses known as dependent clauses. If a main clause is first, don't use a comma. If a time clause is first, use a comma. All right. Quiz time. All right, you're going to take 5 minutes, and then we will go over our answers here. So take 5 minutes, do your quiz, and then we'll check together. Okay, let's take a look at our answers. All right. 1 to 2 is underline the main clause or the time clause. All right. So is the underlined part the main clause or the time clause? So number 1, before you answer the question, you can prepare for 2 minutes. All right. So we see the comma here, we see the before here, so the underlined part is our main clause. I always say thank you after someone gives me a gift. After is our time word, time clause. Which sentence is correct? I feel angry, comma, when people are rude. When people are rude, comma, I feel angry. When people are, comma, rude, I feel angry. Again, remember, when the time clause comes first, you're going to have the comma. The trick is, when you look between B and C here, are you putting the comma in the correct space? All right. And don't forget, when the time clause does not come first, you would not have a comma here. That's why A is wrong. Number 4, A. They always eat pizza after they finish a final exam. Okay? No comma in there because the time clause comes second. All right? After they finish a final exam, they always eat pizza. The sentence is correct, except they forgot the comma. All right? And C is wrong because they put the comma here. Okay, A. 5A. I feel tired after I finish exercising. Again, correct. We have the main clause, no comma, because the time clause comes second. Here, what did they do? They put the comma in there, which we don't do because the main clause is first. And then C, second. After I finished exercising, I, comma, feel tired. What happened there? They put the comma in the wrong spot. All right, that concludes our exercise for today. And stay tuned for part 2 of Shabaka's grammar presentation.